you have a business website or an organization website that you're responsible for and it's not showing up in Google, either at all or for the terms that you want, that's a problem. It's hard to know where to start, and there's often a lot of pressure either from a manager or from your customers to figure out why that's happening. The goal of this video is to help diagnose some of those issues, or at least give you a way to think about the problem and be able to do your research and find some solutions. Let's jump into it. There are two primary reasons why a website might not be showing up in Google, or two broad buckets that they fit into. The first is your website is not displayed at all in Google. So no matter how many times you search for your brand name or your website, you can't find it at all online using any search engine. That's one reason. The second bucket is your website is not showing up for the terms that you want, things that are related to your industry or even possible brand name variations that you have for your business. We're gonna cover both, and we'll start with number one. We're gonna use this website today, Tide Effect in Navarre, as our example. And we're gonna pretend that we can't find our website at all anywhere on Google. No matter how many times we try to type in the website name, it does not show up. The first thing I like to do is something called the site operator test. And that's where we copy the full URL string of your website into the search bar and then add the site operator. And what this looks like is if we add on the front end of the URL, site : and we hit enter. That's gonna bring up a variety of things here. If your website is not indexed in Google, and I'll get into what that means here in a second, if your website is not indexed in Google, you will not have any results here outside of the first result here. Try Google Search Console. They always advertise their own stuff in this particular search. But if your website is indexed with Google, you should have a variety of pages that are listed here in the search engine results page. If not, that means that there are some bigger issues. In this case, it does return results, which means my website is indexed in Google, and we can move on to step two. Now, what does indexing mean? I have an entire video on this that you could watch, and I'll link in the description and probably on this video. But basically, when a page is indexed by Google, it means that it's added to their library of resources. If Google keeps you out of that library, there's no way that your website can be found in Google, no matter how many times you search or whatever variations that you try. This site operator search is a really good and quick test to see what's going on directly in Google, but there's another way that you can check this out. This tool is called Google Search Console. It's free and you can sign up for it, and it's fairly straightforward to set up. You have to have a little bit of technical know-how or talk to the person who manages your website. They should be able to help you implement this. So if you want to check if your page can be found in Google, or if it's indexed, in other words, there's two ways to do that. One is you can drop any URL here into this search bar area. I'm going to put our URL, https://tideeffect.co, and hit enter. And it's going to retrieve all of the data available from the Google index. And the report here says that the Google is on URL. It can be found and is indexed according to this section. It will give us an idea of if there's any other elements on the page, like breadcrumbs. And sometimes if you have a video on the page, it will say whether or not the video is indexed. I don't need the particular video to be indexed that is on this page, but if that's important to you, that's something to look into. There's another spot that you can check if pages are indexed. And here in the left sidebar on Google Search Console, if you click on the Pages section, it will give you a full report of how many pages are indexed and not indexed in your site. You can view that full list of indexed pages here by clicking on this button, or you can also look at why pages are not indexed, and they give a whole laundry list of reasons why a page might not be indexed. I've got a whole video, once again, on Google Search Console, a beginner's guide. We'll recommend checking that out if you're interested. This is a great tool, probably our favorite #1 SEO tool to use because it's free and because it's produced by Google, which means it's the closest tool that we have to the actual tool itself, and that is the search engine. Now, we're going to pretend like this website is not indexed at all in Google. If I show up at this report, there is none of these pages that are indexed. This will say 0 or close to 0. And if we do the site search operator, nothing shows up in Google. What do you do then? The easiest way to do this is to talk to a website professional, and they should be able to walk through this with you and kind of coach you through the process. If you're interested in poking around in this issue on your own, the first thing that I would do is check your robots.txt file. And the way that you do that is by taking your website URL and adding robots.txt to the end of it. There are several videos online and probably some reading that you can do on what this means, but what you're trying to look for here is under this section here where it says disallow. If for some reason there was a / next to this disallow, it means that all crawlbots, including the Google crawlbot, would not be allowed to enter your website. And if there's a / there, it means it applies to the entire site. That would need to get removed, and that's something that you want to talk to your website administrator about taking out. The other thing you can try is checking the no index meta tag. And the way that you can check that is by right-clicking within your browser. In this case, we are in Google Chrome, and you're going to click on View Page Source. And what you're looking for, and you can use the command Control-F to do a search, is just type in robots, and it should give you a string here. In this case, it says meta name robots, content is index. If for some reason this were to say no index or any other variation of that, that would be an issue and that needs to get fixed. In this case, it says index, and I know from the previous searches that we did earlier in the example that this website is indexed. But for the sake of example, if it were to not say index, you would need to get that fixed. There can sometimes be other reasons outside of these two things locally on the website that might be an issue. There might be server issues, there might be a firewall restriction, or even a DNS problem. If your domain name isn't correctly pointing at your website server, Google won't be able to find it. That's the more technical stuff. You'll have to work with your web administrator or your IT professionals to get that fixed. But these first two tests should give you a good start. In super rare cases, Google may have issued a manual action against your website, and the spot that you can check that is actually here in Search Console under Security and Manual Actions. And if you click on the Manual Actions section, it might have an issue here, and you have to follow the instructions to get that cleared up, and it might be related to your search performance and indexing within the search engine. You can also check the Security Issues tab here while you're here, and in this case, we have no issues on either. So if your website is not displaying at all in Google, that's a good way to approach it. There's a second category of why your website might not be showing up in Google, and that might be your website is not showing up for the terms that you want. And what terms might these be? Well, it might be your business or your brand name. So using our website example here, the brand name is Tide Effect. Let's say we type in Tide Effect and we hit enter. As I scroll through these results, our website is listed here, but let's pretend that it's not listed here. There might be a couple of reasons for that. Number one is the term has mixed intent. Now, what does mixed intent mean? It means if someone searches Tide Effect, they might not be looking for my client's website, in this case, Tide Effect, which is an Airbnb hosting site / local blog to the Florida area. They might be looking for content related to the actual tide effect of the moon. And you can actually see that here in the AI overview. It's talking about the moon, it's talking about high tide, low tide. It's giving us results for National Geographic, for NOAA. And so this is considered to be a mixed intent. If we were to modify this search, something like Tide Effect Navarre, which is where the business is based out of, it will actually put our result here up at the top. So the shorter term Tide Effect is a mixed intent, but once we add the modifier of Navarre, it understands we're talking about the business and not about the moon phases. Another issue you might run into is your brand name is common. In the case of Tide Effect, it's not super common, but a good example would be something like Guardian Roofing. There are a lot of businesses, of roofing businesses around the United States that name their business Guardian Roofing. And so if you're trying to rank for the brand name Guardian Roofing, that might actually be more difficult. And the reasons why you might not be showing up is because your competitors are bigger, or Google sees the competitor that you are trying to be ranked against as more important than you are. And that's a frustrating thing to deal with as a business owner or as a website owner, but that's how Google works. And the third reason you might not be showing up for your brand name is that the website may not be built properly. If your website was not built properly using correct markup, correct H1s, H2s, meta descriptions, Google might look at your website and say, you know what, this is not properly architected, we're not going to display this in search. And in that case, your website likely has large content and structural issues which need to get fixed before Google will allow you to be listed or ranked for your brand name. Now, what if we're not talking about a brand name, but we're talking about terms related to your services or your industry? So let's take the case of Guardian Roofing. They might be showing up just fine for Guardian Roofing, but they want to show up for, let's say, Roofing Services Atlanta. And let's say Guardian Roofing is a roofer that's based in Atlanta, but they're not showing up anywhere in the top, let's say, 4 or 5 pages. There's a couple reasons for this. Number one, the keyword might be competitive. I imagine, even without looking at the search volume for this keyword, that Roofing Services Atlanta is a very competitive keyword. As keywords get more competitive and as more money is involved in ranking for these keywords, it will become more difficult to rank for the keywords. And a lot of times, the most established businesses and the businesses that have a really solid SEO strategy are the ones who will be on the first page. The second reason might be content relevance and depth issues. Ideally, Google wants to rank pages that speak comprehensively about a user's query. So if it's something like solar installation in Nashville, or in this case, Roofing Services Atlanta, and the page that you are trying to get ranked is thin on content, it lacks details or doesn't really cover related topics, Google might not see that as the best resource. And Google has an interest in delivering the best search result or the best resource for the searcher, who is their end customer. Another reason might be you have a low website authority. And what do I mean by website authority? So every website has what's called a domain rating or a domain authority score. Technically, Google does not admit to this, but there's been many studies that have been done on the subject that show that more backlinks that point at a website URL, the higher the domain authority or the domain rating of the site, the more likely you are to rank for those keywords. And one free resource that you can use is the Ahrefs Website Authority Checker. This is actually built into their full tool, which is available, and there are some free tools within the full tool, but this is a standalone tool that you can use. You can enter your domain and see what your authority is. So I'm actually going to enter the domain here, tideeffect.co, and we're going to check the authority. So it's giving me right now a domain rating of 2.2, and this is usually listed out of 100. It says that I have 55 backlinks, I've got 53 linking websites, but just a 2.2 domain rating. If I'm trying to get tideeffect.co to rank for something like vacation rentals in Navarre, Florida, and I've got great content, I've got great website structure, but I just can't seem to punch through the first, second, or third pages, likely it's due to a domain rating or a domain authority issue. And I need to work on getting websites that have good authority to link to me as someone who has lower authority. And there's a lot of strategies built around that end, and you can do your research online for how to do that. There's also a lot of scams, so be very careful when you talk about backlink building, but there are certainly white hat or above board ways of getting more backlinks to your website so that you can be more competitive in search. One other reason that a page may not be ranking well is you might just have bad content on the website or bad organization of content on the site. Let's say we're trying to get this page to rank for Navarre vacation rentals, and I've got some decent content on here, but if I compare it to other listings in the area that are currently ranking better, maybe they have more things on page, maybe they have more widgets. Really try to pay attention to what is working for the keyword and what is working in your local area, and try to modify your strategy based off of that. That's the best advice I can give. And from a 10,000 foot level, there's an entire profession dedicated to the craft of getting a website to rank. And we're in that profession here at Bluestem Media. We do SEO, or search engine optimization. And if you are running into a lot of issues trying to get your website to rank for a lot of these terms, or you are even starting from a place where your website is not showing up at all in search, I would highly recommend reaching out and we can try to help you troubleshoot some of those things.